Hello, my name is Danielle DuPuis. I'm a library media specialist and video production teacher at Hammond High School in Columbia, Maryland. I'm also our school's sexuality and gender club sponsor. 5 years ago, sitting down with my students during one of our after-school meetings of our Saga Club, my students mentioned to me that they didn't feel safe and they didn't feel accepted or affirmed at school. And for me, this was surprising because I picked this school to work at because I felt safe and because I felt affirmed here with my colleagues. So to hear students say that was a little bit concerning to me. And come to find out, it was because their teachers really didn't quite understand the LGBTQ plus community. And so the teachers were not being supportive. They didn't know that they should be using certain pronouns for certain students or even how to approach that subject matter. And so the best way to educate somebody is to teach them, right? And how could we teach educators about having this conversation or making better classroom practices? And so we decided as a group that we would have our very first Rainbow Conference. And not just for our school, but for all the schools in our district. We'd open it up to all educators to come and to learn, and it would be a great time. So we scheduled this for May 15th, 2020. We all know what happened in 2020. So I had received some grant funding through one of the SEL in Action grants. I had applied for a personal grant and was awarded, so that way we could bring in a keynote speaker. So Micah Meyer, who's traveled throughout all of the national park systems in the United States, was scheduled to come to our school and present and be our keynote speaker. And yeah, so March 13th, 2020, we're all sent home, and after that, everything was crumbling. So very quickly, we had to pivot and move our entire face-to-face conference to a virtual one. We had 14 sessions that we did virtually that year, and we ended up postponing Micah Meyer for the following year to come to the Rainbow Conference. I had thought that it was going to be Micah that was going to bring in these attendees, but when in reality what happened was everybody wanted to come to learn just for the sake of learning from the community members, from the students, and kind of just be part of something greater than themselves. And that was really, really wonderful. So our first year we had over 300 people register for the conference. And then in our second year, our plan was to bring Micah Meyer here, which again, we could not do due to the state of the country at the time in 2021. So he actually did 2 virtual sessions, keynote sessions for us so that we could accommodate more people. We had over 350 people register in 2021. And it was a wonderful conference. This time we had 28 sessions of people, and everybody loved it. It was just super wonderful. We had students come and have a panel of students. We had another student do a presentation. We were able to get students from It Gets Better project in. It was just really, really great. This is kind of where we had started, was with this conference, and that kind of opened the door to a lot of different things for us. During our first year of the conference, I had asked for my school system to sponsor the event, and the answer was no. And I can understand why. It wasn't an answer that I wanted to hear, but a lot of times when you have new things, people are reluctant to get on board right away until they see how things turn out. So my advice is, when you want to create change and you want to create this support for a community, you need to make sure that you're very gracious and accepting and understanding of what someone else is willing to do. And you also need to put in a lot of effort and work to make sure that it happens in the way that you kind of envision it to happen. Because the success of what it is that you're trying to accomplish is going to be dependent upon how you have that first event or that first thing that's going to be drawing people in. So you want it to be a really positive experience for people to walk away from, so they have a really good flavor for what could be accomplished then in the future. But the second year was a little different. The second year, our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion reached out to me and asked to have their name put on it as well, and they would be very supportive of the program. So things changed. Around that same time, we had this, so we have the educational piece of educating educators, but then what about the student piece? Students have a lot to say, and it's very valuable, and educators can learn a lot from what students have to teach us if we're willing to listen. And so we had an opportunity to create this literary magazine, which again, instead of doing it school-wide, we opened it up to the whole county for high school students to submit to. So artwork, written work, photographs, anything they could submit, and we would publish it. So that first year, we received about 35 entries and we published 30 of them. It was very popular, very well received. And we had received outside funding to accomplish this. We had received a grant from elsewhere to publish that first magazine. And every conference attendee also received a copy of Rainbow Vision because we included our conference program within it. So it was a way to kind of double up. The second year, however, our magazine was published in-house. So we received support from the county to be able to publish it at a much lower cost, so it was very cost-saving for us. And this time we opened it up to middle schoolers because middle school students saw the magazine and said, hey, I really want to be part of that. I have stuff to say. So we then opened it up to middle school and received middle school submissions. And then in our most recent year, our third year, we opened it up again just to middle and high school students, and we received over 85 entries this time for our third volume. We were able to publish around 65 of those entries, but yes, over 85 entries, which is really significant and really wonderful. We also then hosted an event recently at Busboys and Poets where we had the kids come up and actually read their work aloud to a live audience, and talk about rewarding to be able to see that. It was amazing. But this was great for student voice because not only could students see themselves through the eyes of other students, but teachers could then read this work and have a better understanding for what students were feeling. This was a way for teachers to really get to know their students better. And we make sure to market this magazine to everyone. So it's not just for LGBTQ plus students, but also their allies. So we want that ally perspective too, because we know that we're a smaller community and we really need the support of everyone in order to bring more equity and understanding and advocacy to the LGBTQ plus community. So we're making ripples here. And so again, our first experience was to bring in that educational piece for educators. Next, we're bringing in that student voice piece. And what goes hand in hand with writing? It's reading. And it's really, really important for kids to be able to have access to high quality literature that represents them. And so I was able to receive a second grant through the Social Emotional Learning for Action grant, this time to support a Read the Rainbow book club. And what the Read the Rainbow book club did was put books in the hands of children, and it also brought in the author, for the author to hang out with us and the kids to ask all of their questions of the author. This has been one of the coolest experiences of my career. Every couple months I get to meet a different author, hang out with these students. The conversations are all student directed, so they ask all of the questions. They're there and excited about the books, and the excitement just spreads. And that to me is, as a librarian, is so rewarding and wonderful to see kids get excited about books. And the books that we feature are all books that feature LGBTQ plus characters, and they're all written by queer authors. So to be able to meet that person, to be able to meet that author and ask them all of your questions has been just amazing. And these authors have been so wonderful and sweet and kind and gracious with these kids. It's really inspirational, and it's not only inspired kids to read more, but it's also inspired them to write and to kind of express themselves. And expressing yourself is so important in queer culture in so many ways. So that's been absolutely wonderful. So once we had that, so we have these 3 separate projects now for the queer community. It was also evident that information was getting lost in translation. And that's because we didn't really have a representative at every school. So in 2021, we applied for and received a district level grant, which awarded us with funds to be able to support a rainbow representative at every school in our district, elementary, middle, high, and our special schools. So there's someone that comes to a quarterly meeting and learns about all the information that we have to share. They take that back to the school and they serve as a resource for their school and for the LGBTQ+ community. So they're a visible ally and somebody that our parents and students and community members can go to when they have questions. They might not always be able to answer the questions, and that's okay. And that's when they are going to forward that question on up to administration or central office to be able to help assist with that. That's been such a wonderful program that we're actually expanding it even more this year. And we just received our second district level grant. And what this is going to do is it's really going to empower our students and our educators to work together to create positive programming for the LGBTQ+ community in each of their home schools. At the end of the year, in next school year, in 2023, we're going to have our 3rd Rainbow Conference. And at that conference, we are going to be able to have an opportunity for our students to present what they were able to do with the funding that they received through the grant and what impact it made on the LGBTQ+ community. I really can't explain exactly how much it means to feel so supported through this process. It hasn't been an easy process because when you are tossing stones into the proverbial pond, you're going to make some disruption. But in order to create change, we have to put ourselves out there. We have to be willing to take the chance. We have to be willing to fail. As an educator, I am really proud of how far we've come in the last few years with creating this welcoming environment for our LGBTQ+ students and families and educators and our community at large. I love that every year we've been able to build a little bit on what we've already established and that we continue to bring in outside groups, that we are collaborating with others. And it's really important that when you have these multiple ripples, in order to create a wave, you really need the support of a larger community. Because when it's just you, or it's just your school, or it's just your class, it's much harder to be able to then gain the support and the positive visibility that is needed in order to move forward and create these positive changes. Many of the programs that we started here in our school system through the use of grant funds are now being supported through our community organizations and also through our own school system. Without them, we would not be able to thrive in the way that we have. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the future as we continue to build and grow these programs for the LGBTQ+ community in our district. And for the first time ever, we've just received approval from our Board of Education to include a LGBTQ+ specialist position at the central office level for the 22-23 school year. So I'm really, really excited to see what supports that position is going to be able to provide for our school district and how these ripples are going to grow into waves and be able to make positive change throughout our community.